Welcome back to the Bill and Doug Show. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis here. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody. We're drafting quarterbacks in the playoff, Bill Landis. We are going to do a couple of these at least, looking at the 8 remaining teams in the college football playoff, and we're going to go through different parts of those teams and draft in order who we think has what best. We are not going to pretend that we are the utmost experts on every single team and unit and player in the playoff. Obviously, there's going to be a certain bents to this, but I think it'll be fun.
Which direction do you think perhaps there could be certain bends here?
This is I'm going hard on like Will Hammond is better than you think. So apparently Will Hammond is the backup quarterback for Texas Tech. I don't really know that. I think maybe I heard somebody say that on a different podcast one time. So we're going to start with quarterbacks here. The quarterbacks, as you know, in the college football playoff, 1 seed Indiana is led by Heisman Trophy winner Fernando Mendoza. Ohio State has Julian, who finished 4th in the Heisman voting. Georgia has Gunnar Stockton. Texas Tech has Baron Morton. Oregon has Dante Moore. Ole Miss has Trinidad Chambliss. Miami has Carson Beck. And Alabama has Ty Simpson. Fernando Mendoza won the Heisman and is really good. But there had been a time, Bill, I think, when, especially maybe in the 4-team playoff, when you're just thinking like, man, you better have a Joe Burrow. You better have a Trevor Lawrence. And now some of the Bama winners in there didn't always have that, but like you better have a Deshaun Watson. You better have a Justin Fields. You better have a guy who is playing the position at the very top of the sport. You can't get more at the top of the sport than Fernando Mendoza. And Fernando Mendoza also might be like the number 1 pick in the draft. And if he's not the number 1 pick in the 2026 NFL draft, it might be because Dante Moore goes pro, and Dante Moore from Oregon is the number 1 pick. He's a guy I think that Mel Kiper has loved so far in this process. So I don't want to downgrade the quality of the quarterbacks in the playoff, but is it fair to say there's not a Deshaun Watson or a Joe Burrow?
I think that's fair. Yeah. And part of that is, just a little bit of how the sport is changing, I think. But even if you were, whatever, to use draft stock as your guide, like, yes, Mendoza and Moore are at the top of this conversation. I don't know if they'd be at the top of the conversation in some of the more recent years draft classes. But there aren't like, so you mentioned Mendoza, obviously the winner. Sayin was 4th. Gunnar Stockton finished 7th. Trinidad Chambliss finished 8th. So, like, these weren't guys who were like merely along for the ride with their teams. There's some decent quarterbacks here, but yeah, it's probably lacking in star power compared to some other potential. Like if we had an expanded playoff, whatever, 5 years ago, I think the 8 quarterbacks could probably be like substantially better than what we're looking at here.
And I think we'll let the draft speak for itself. I don't want to overdo the thing I want to say right away, but I kind of really want to say it, but I'm not going to say it quite yet. So why don't we just do our draft? Okay. We'll go 1 through 8, and I think that it's like the quarterback you would take for the playoff if they were messing everything around and said, okay, these are the 8 teams that are in, but now Team X, you get the first pick of quarterback. We're throwing the 8 quarterbacks in the pot. Who do you want for the next month? That's the standard that we're going by. So, Bill Landis, you can have the first pick. Who is the number 1 quarterback in the 2025-26 college football playoff?
And we're doing this as best we can, sort of like independent of their situation, right? Like, you don't get to bring their receivers and their offense with them. Right. It's just, okay.
Oh, all right. Now you're making me wonder, like, what's your... I think Bill Landis is laying down Fernando Mendoza as a product of his situation, and that's why he's taking Baron Morton number 1, because Baron Morton has nothing to work with.
No, I think it was more like... I honestly think there's probably only 2 guys you could even consider for the first pick, and I think one of them, if we're just being honest, is actually they're both in pretty good situations. Whatever. I'll take Mendoza. He was on the field against Ohio State and was the slightly better quarterback in that game. He can run a little bit too. I think he's got really good command, and like he didn't set the world on fire against the Buckeyes, but he made some really big throws in that game that made a tremendous difference in a very tight game against Ohio State. So he's I guess a little battle tested. in that way too. And the fact that, he's, and not only in that game, but he went on the road at Iowa and played well. He went on the road at Oregon and played well. Like, he's kind of been through it a little bit and come out with a W, even if he hasn't played perfect in those games. So I'll roll with him first. And if Ohio State fans are mad at me, that's okay.
So I think there probably is a little bit of a separator with Mendoza and Sayin, with the ability to run, with the ability to scramble for first downs. You look at the PFF stats. Mendoza has 25 scrambles this year. Sayin has 11. Sometimes Sayin makes good decisions with checkdowns. He was talking about that idea, Julian Sayin, and we'll get to that in more when we draft Julian Sayin, about just like getting the ball out of his hands and not holding the ball too long. But Mendoza, I think, is a pretty good mix of, it's like, you know what? I'll just say it. I think Fernando Mendoza is pretty good. I'm not afraid to say it. Just because the guy might win the Triple Crown and might go Heisman National Championship, number 1 pick in the draft. You know what? I'll put it right on the line. Pretty good. But I do think is a good mix of playmaker. He has thrown a couple, rough picks this year, but so is Julian Sayin. Not many, not much quantity. So the ones that they do throw stick out. But he's a playmaker with his arms. He's a playmaker with his legs more than Sayin is. Clearly, you saw the reaction with a bunch of his teammates who were at the Heisman ceremony. In 1 year, he has clearly established himself in the culture of Indiana football, which you want a quarterback to do, which probably, frankly, he's probably done a little bit more than Julian Sayin at Ohio State as a first-year starter, mostly based on age and experience, right? So that he's a fourth-year college football player. Julian Sayin is a second-year college football player. But we're talking about this guy in this situation. I don't think he'll play worse in the playoff. Right, there might be some guys that you think rise to the occasion. There might be some guys in this playoff that you wonder if they can handle the spotlight. Some guys will be just the same. At the very least, Fernando Mendoza is I think, built for this in a lot of ways, mentally, emotionally, from an experience standpoint, the way he fits in his team. And I think you're going to get a good effort from Fernando.
Yeah, the thing I like about him is I just like the ability to, if for whatever reason, maybe the passing game is not dialed exactly the way you want it to, he'll just kind of put his body on the line and start making plays. I think, right? And maybe he's not the only guy in the playoff that will do that, but he probably is capable of doing it maybe at the highest level. There's just the balance of having the dual threat with the very high end passing ability and just the whatever's in his DNA to kind of make winning plays when it matters the most. I don't know that there's another guy in this field that has demonstrated that as much as him.
And, every quarterback is a product of his environment to some degree. Fernando Mendoza does have the highest average depth of target, which is how far the ball travels in the air when you throw it on average. He has the highest yards per attempt of anybody in the playoff. So he has guys like Omar Cooper Jr. and Elijah Surratt and Charlie Becker where he can push the ball down the field a little bit, but he's not a check down king. He's making plays down the field. And again, he doesn't turn it over a ton. He has the most touchdown passes in major college football. And still a pretty good completion percentage and everything. So again, he's a Heisman winner. We don't have to
He is good.
Glaze too much. I mean, the guy's good, but you'd want Fernando Mendoza on your team, right?
I would. Yeah. Because it's not, he's the most efficient by just passer rating, or second most efficient, quarterback in the country. And there's a way to rank that high and be a pretty boring quarterback. But he's not actually the guys. So there's 3 guys here in the top 5 in efficiency. I wouldn't say that any of them are boring. There's a guy in the top 10 who might be a little boring. Actually, there's 2 guys at the back end of the top 10 who might be a little boring. But these guys at the top, I think, are not only are they highly efficient, but they're just they're excellent quarterbacks in their own right. But Mendoza's just, I think, been in the situations to kind of demonstrate sort of the traits you want to see from a playoff quarterback more than some of the others.
21 big-time throws, according to PFF. That's 4th among the 8 playoff quarterbacks, and 9 turnover-worthy plays, which again is kind of middle of the pack of the playoff quarterback. All right, so do you think there is a conversation at number 2?
Uh, sure. Yes. Yeah. I think there is. I would probably. I think I can make a call rather quickly, but I think there's a little bit of a conversation. Yeah.
Because I think there's a quarterback where you have a pretty good idea of what he is, and maybe he'll elevate. And but there's a quarterback that you wonder, could he go nuts? Maybe. And so I'll take Julian Sayin from Ohio
Okay.
State, who is, I think, the quarterback we have a pretty good handle on. This is the guy who has the best completion percentage in the country, the best regular season completion percentage that we've ever seen in college football. He does not turn it over very much. He has 6 turnover-worthy plays, which among the 8 starting quarterbacks is the fewest of any playoff quarterback. 31 touchdowns, is tied for second in the nation behind Fernando Mendoza. Still has a good yards per attempt. It's 9.3. Which is actually tied with Fernando Mendoza for first. So again, like, he's not just checking it down. His 8.7 yard average depth of target is tied for second. And so, he knows he had reads against Michigan and Indiana where he got tricked by coverage and threw early interceptions and bounced back from those. Ohio State, a lot of their conversation right now is they got to be better in the red zone. But he did lead 2 long drives at the end of the game against Indiana to give Ohio State a chance late in that game. And I think the idea, and it's like, this isn't fair to do. It's like, who cares what these guys have been? I just think they're going to elevate in the playoff. It's like, well, everyone's going to try to be better in the playoffs. So you can't judge somebody by what you think they might be. But certainly, I think Julian Sayin has a chance to do that, but his baseline's pretty high.
I think his baseline's pretty high. And I would even say there was something. I know they didn't finish the drive in the end against Indiana, but to see how he operated, like, while losing for the first time against Indiana, I actually did find a little bit encouraging. Like, the offense moved the ball. And he wasn't making wow throws, but he was making throws and helping them move down there. They just didn't finish the drives, and I don't know that any of that is much of his fault. Like, I guess his knee scraped against the ground on the QB sneak, and he threw what I thought was a decent ball on the pass that got knocked out of the receiver's hands there on the third down play before they missed the field goal late in that game. So it wasn't like there was an opportunity, I guess, for like, okay, Ohio State's down, they have the ball. What's Julian Sayin got? And it's like, he's not ready yet. Like, he's not ready to lead game-winning drives yet. And I certainly didn't come away feeling that. So, like, you just kind of add that to everything else you've seen from him, the incredible level of efficiency. I think he's the most accurate passer in the playoff, probably by a significant margin. And we've talked a little bit before too about, like, I think he's got some playmaking stuff to him that he's not had to dig into a whole lot. And maybe you could argue, kind of in the middle of the Indiana game, maybe it would have been nice to see him do once or twice to get away from a sack. I'm not saying he's a perfect quarterback by any measure, but I think he's maybe a little bit more of a gamer than he might get credit for, just based off like the high efficiency numbers and the fact that Ohio State had not been tested a bunch prior to Indiana.
What did you think of the Julian Sayin conversation? He really, and when Ohio State was having some interviews on Monday, he really was talking about holding the ball too much, and that, I asked him, like, why do you think that happens? And he said, well, like, I'm kind of waiting for a guy. I'm waiting for something to break open, and I want to give it a chance. But he thought he held the ball too much against Indiana. But yet, when you look at the sack numbers, he's near the bottom in for playoff quarterbacks with the number of sacks that he's taken. That he does not take a ton of sacks, and it's always the push and pull of, especially when you have guys like Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, who can work free, who are threats down the field. You don't want to give up on those guys. And I think sometimes we've wondered, have there been shots there that maybe he's gotten off of too quickly? But he was talking about, maybe I waited too long on some things. 13 sacks, according to PFF this year. For instance, there's a quarterback in the playoff who's taken 30 sacks so far this year. So, did you think he held the ball too long against Indiana, or like, what's the right balance for Julian Sayin in this Ohio State offense?
I don't know that I felt that on all of the, like, I think maybe just on one of the 5 sacks that he took against Indiana, that I think was kind of on him for holding onto the ball too long. Was a play where, like, Brandon Ennis was open down the field and he didn't throw him the ball. Otherwise, I kind of mostly think that the pressure was on him too quickly for him to do really anything. I'm trying to remember. There was a one where he scrambled like out to the sideline, and I think scrambled for no gain, and it's like it's not a sack, but I wonder like if in his mind is that a sack too, and like that's an opportunity
Hmm.
where he's got to get the ball out of his hands and not have that happen. But I thought mostly he was just trying to point the attention towards himself and not at Ohio State's offensive line. Which I and honestly, like even we talked about, like they weren't on the O line either. So I don't know. I think it's a thing that quarterbacks say. I don't know that it's a thing that Julian Sayin has actually had an issue with for much of this season.
Okay. Best deep ball thrower among the playoff quarterbacks, throws of 20 yards or more, complete 65.1%. That's the best. There are some playoff quarterbacks, a playoff quarterback in the 30s, and Julian Sayin is double that with the completion percentage. So, also, again, having Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith certainly helps with that. But Julian Sayin, I didn't think too long and hard. Who do you think is number 3 here?
I'll take Dante Moore.
So that's who I wondered about. Like, is there a Dante Moore case to be taken ahead of Julian Sayin?
I think if you want to factor in the athletic ability, the running potential with Dante Moore, who has 279 rushing yards this year, split pretty evenly between scramble yards and designed yards. He's only got 2 rushing touchdowns. He's fumbled 5 times, which is like pretty pretty high number. I think that the thing that did like steer me more toward Julian than Dante Moore is some of the turnover stuff. Dante Moore has 8 interceptions. Dante Moore has 8 turnover worthy plays. He has the 5 fumbles. He threw 2 picks against James Madison. I don't know. It's interesting. He doesn't have. He is not charged with having any turnover worthy throws against James Madison, but he threw 2 interceptions. And I know on one of them, like the receiver fell down. They were like trying to throw a real wheel route to Kenyon Sadiq, and I think he fell down. And I can't remember why the other one happened. So like I understand that sometimes an interception can just be bad luck and not necessarily a bad throw. But aside from that, like I don't know. I've liked a lot of what I've seen from Dante Moore this year. He's another guy who has been in some pressure moments. Like I didn't think he played really well at all in the I shouldn't say at all. Did not play well for like stretches of the Penn State game, but then when fourth quarter and overtime rolled around, he was kind of dialed in, and I thought that was pretty impressive. That was back before Penn State's season unraveled, and it was a huge game, and it was on the road at night in Happy Valley. It doesn't get much tougher than that, and I thought he performed really well there when it mattered the most. So I think he might be the guy with like the most room to elevate in the playoff of all these quarterbacks, right? But I think that could. Frankly, that could point you to taking him first, I think, in this exercise if you wanted to. But because that's like more of a projection and maybe a little less of what we've seen from him consistently, I think I'm okay with taking him 3rd here.
Listed at 6'3", 206. It's good size. I thought in September, just the way he was playing, I mean, they fricasseed Oklahoma State in week 2 and just named their score. And I thought Dante Moore was a very logical Heisman candidate at that point. And then they've had some tough ones. They had a crazy weather game at Iowa. What he saved that game with as good of a throw as you'll see in college football to set up the game-winning score. And again, somebody out there is doing an X Factor draft or whatever, and Dante Moore is going very high of like the guy who could change the playoff based on maybe how much they elevate here in the postseason. But he's the 2nd best deep ball thrower by completion percentage behind Julian Sayin. I think he's another pretty good combination of playmaker and doesn't just absolutely hand it to the other team, right? So 8 turnover worthy plays, and that's what PFF has. I mean, that's Sayin has 6, and then Moore and another starting quarterback are tied for the 2nd fewest with 8, but yet he also has 28 big time throws, which is 2nd among playoff quarterbacks. So like this is a guy with a real ceiling who I thought there were a couple quarterbacks in the first round who maybe not, they didn't throw 4 picks the way Carson Beck threw 4 picks against Louisville for Miami in the regular season. But there were some guys who in a moment John Mateer for Oklahoma, they kind of had that game in hand, and then he threw a pick six, and it kind of started getting away from him, right? And I thought, there were just like Marcel Reed just looked like he wasn't quite ready for the moment for Texas A&M. That I thought there were those two quarterbacks primarily, because then like you're not going to yell at the Tulane and JMU quarterbacks, but like they just kind of weren't ready to elevate in the playoff. And if they were, I think their teams would have won. And they weren't ready to do it for 60 minutes. And so I kind of wanted to do like an exercise like this after watching those two games and being like, oh, if Oklahoma and Texas A&M got a little bit better quarterback play, they might still be alive. Who has the quarterback play that is going to keep them alive the rest of the playoff, right? And so I'm not worried about Dante Moore throwing a bunch of pick sixes.
No, I'm not worried about that either. I'd like to see him what it looks like if he's playing in a game where he's really sped up, which frankly like might happen against Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl. That's just tough to have to play at like a different speed than you're used to playing to all year. And if he does play well there, it's like, see you later, you're going to the NFL. It might be like the last box he has to check, I think, for people. But I'm just looking at his passing depth. Like when your numbers get better, the deeper you throw the ball down the field, I certainly take note of that. His second most big time throws in the field too. Like he probably has the most like arm juice of all these guys too.
I think that's right.
So there's a lot. Yeah. I mean, obviously he might be the first pick in the draft. There's a lot to like there.
Yeah. And yeah. Somebody could have drafted Dante Moore first in this, ahead of the guy who won the Heisman, ahead of the guy who finished fourth in the Heisman, and you could have made a case. Is there a line here after the top three?
There is a line, but I also think like there's like a line, and then the next tier I think is one guy, and then there's another line.
Okay. So I think, is the next guy pretty clear to you?
The next guy is clear to me. Yes. I don't know if he'd be clear to everybody, but he's clear to me. Yeah.
I think he'd be clear to almost everybody, and it's Trinidad Chambliss from Ole Miss. Yes?
That's not who I was going to pick. No.
Oh. Okay, then then this got interesting. All right. Yeah. Trinidad Chambliss can scoot.
He sure can.
He has 500 rushing yards. He only took over as a starter in week 3, and he has like 7 or 8 games of 300 passing yards. It's not this conversation, but can we have a side conversation very quickly? Are the two, so of the 8 teams in the playoff, offense and defense, 16 units, are the 2 worst units in the playoff the Texas Tech offense and the Ole Miss defense?
Remaining, you mean? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's right. So I think he is the guy who needs to like make his team go the most. Like, is Quan Lacey going to be okay for Ole Miss, the running back?
I actually don't know.
Nobody comes to us for Ole Miss information. But like, you think about Dante Moore, they have a real defense. They have maybe the best run game left in the playoff. You think about Ohio State and Indiana, they might have they have 2 of the 3 best defenses left in the playoff, arguably. They both have outstanding receivers. Trinidad Chambliss, I think, is making this go a little bit more on his own. He does have 500 rushing yards. He, by PFF, is the 4th rated quarterback in the playoff. He has 22 big time throws, which is pretty good, and only 8 turnover worthy plays, which is pretty good. His average depth of target, he does throw it down the field. It's 3rd among playoff quarterbacks, 9.1. Average depth of target is right there, 8.6. Like, I think this guy's a real playmaker. And everyone knows the story now. He's a Ferris State transfer from Division II. He came to Ole Miss. I think several teams were looking at him as a backup quarterback. They thought young guy Austin Simmons was going to be the starter. Simmons got hurt. Chambliss came in and never gave up the job and has really fueled this, I think, in a huge way. And I think, again, like upside, and sometimes maybe upside is just running ability. Like Trinidad Chambliss is going to scoot more than Julian Sayin. So it's like, okay, is there more complicated than that to say like upside? He would scare me a little bit if you were game planning for him. And there's a little bit, I think there's an absolute baseline of production, but I think there's a ceiling there that's like, oh man, we can't let this guy get loose.
I don't disagree with any of that. He's had some pretty inefficient passing games, which is why he was not the guy that I had in mind. But like the best version of him is very good. I just don't know And like his inefficient passing games, like are against the better defenses that Ole Miss has played,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're not gonna see anything other than good defenses here in the playoffs. So like he's a winner, right? He's a national champion at Division II level. I think that matters too. He's good. I think he would. I had a guy. Oh, it'd be interesting. I had a guy I was going to take before him. I might have taken him 2 picks from now, though.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. This is the guy that I thought. So now I think I know who you're taking. But then there's a statistical discussion around the guy that I think you're going to take.
Okay. Well, I'm taking Gunnar Stockton. Is that the guy?
Yeah. That's your guy.
Okay.
My impression of Gunnar Stockton is that he is a baller who has saved Georgia time and time again this season. And then you look at the stats, and I was like, oh, has he? So make your case for Gunnar.
Did you take a look at who his numbers are in the fourth quarter?
I did not. Ridiculous.
He is completing 87.5% of his passes in the fourth quarter with 6 touchdowns and no interceptions.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I just think it's the gamer element for me. I like overall, yeah, his numbers don't blow you away. Like I'm looking at sorting here. Like passing grade among these guys, he's 5th in the playoff. He does not have much in the way of big time throws, and his turnover worthy plays to big time throws is basically even, which is not where you want to be
Right.
unless you're throwing like 40 big time throws, which he's not. He's 14-12. So I think like down to down, yeah, he's not going to wow you. But I think if you get into a tight game in the fourth quarter, it's either him or Mendoza, maybe the guys I might want most in this field.
Okay.
And maybe that sounds crazy. And he can also run. He's got I knew he could move. I knew he was mobile. I did not know that he had the second most rushing yards among all the quarterbacks left in the playoff. 492, and he's got 8 rushing touchdowns.
Behind Chambliss, is Chambliss 1?
Behind Chambliss. Chambliss is
okay.
1. Yeah, they had the same number of rushing touchdowns. They both have 8 to lead the field, but Chambliss has more overall yards, but a lot of Stockton's yards are designed. 302 designed yards and 190 scramble yards. So it's not like he's just running around and doing stuff. They're calling plays to get the ball in his hands.
He gets Tebow-ish a little bit sometimes.
He does. Yeah.
Using him as a battering ram.
Yeah. And I think he likes it. I don't, again, no idea what his NFL ceiling is. If you're doing a quarterback beauty contest, I don't think I'm taking him in terms of just like, guy throws a pretty ball or whatever. But, if you're just ranking them by, we need to go get a first down here. It's the fourth quarter and it's tied. I think I might have him pretty close to the top of the list, if not at the top.
So I covered the Georgia Notre Dame quarterfinal last year, and that was the game where Gunnar Stockton was going to have to make his first start because Carson Beck got hurt. And I just, like, you walked around and it was like, Georgia was like, tell us about Gunnar Stockton. And everybody was like, he's really nice. And I was like, oh no. Oh no. And he seemed like a swell fella, but it was like, oh my, this is a lot for you, young man, to be put in this situation. And then actually, I mean, he's not the reason they lost to Notre Dame. He actually played okay. Kirby Smart made some screwball calls and they shot themselves in the foot in a lot of ways. I just, again, was opening up the stats. All I think about with Gunnar Stockton is the 4th down throw he made against Tennessee, and then they made the 2-point conversion, and then they won in overtime in a game they had no right winning. And I thought that was like week 4 preparing for the Georgia ship to go down. I was signing up for an 8-4 Georgia seasons. That's your dog mentality right there. And Gunnar Stockton pulled it out of nowhere. And then again, to your point, fourth quarter, it feels like he's been saving them over and over again. And so then I was like, oh, let's like sort some stats. And then you get to the playoff quarterbacks and he has 14 big time throws. And there are 6 quarterbacks in the playoff who have at least 20. And I was like, wait, I thought this guy was a baller who's making like ridiculous plays on his own all the time. And so then I was like, oh, well, maybe not. But then also, I'm not sure what he has to work with. So I think he certainly doesn't have Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. He doesn't have Omar Cooper Jr. and Elijah Surratt. He doesn't have the run game, I don't think, to the depth and skill that Dante Moore has at Oregon. And when the Oregon receivers get healthy, he's going to have some weapons too. So I understand that does matter. But I just thought, your point about Chambliss and like, Chambliss is one of his worst games was when they played Georgia, right? And Gunnar Stockton beat Trinidad Chambliss head to head. But I think that like maybe down to down, Chambliss is more of a threat, pushing the ball down the field, running, making plays, like leading an offense. But maybe in the fourth quarter, you have a point. So I was pretty locked in on Chambliss. You definitely would have taken Stockton fourth.
I would have taken Stockton fourth. Yeah. And the rushing numbers were a bit of a revelation for me. That kind of like put it over the top. Passing depth, he's good. Like he's not bad like at any level of the field. I'm pulling up his numbers against pressure. Like okay under pressure, okay. Actually really better when blitzed by a significant margin than when he's not not blitzed. 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. When blitzed, 17 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Oh my.
So again, I just think he might be the guy that like, wants the most pressure packed moment you can possibly give him and he'll perform. But when it's like 1st and 10 from your own 38 with 8 minutes left in the first quarter, maybe he doesn't look great.
Yeah, no, I think that definitely could be right. Okay. So then, okay. I guess I don't really want to take anybody.
I love the position that you found yourself in here.
I know. Thank you. Okay. I'll take Ty Simpson from Alabama. It has to be Ty Simpson, right? You would have considered Ty Simpson ahead of Trinidad Chambliss.
Probably, yeah. Simpson, like, is not my particular cup of tea, but I do think you have to acknowledge that sometimes the arm looks pretty special with him. So yeah. I think I would take Simpson. Yeah.
So I will. I mean, it's just a guide. It's just a guide. PFF stats: first 7 games of the season for Ty Simpson, 20 big time throws, 5 turnover worthy plays. Last 7 games for Ty Simpson, 10 big time throws, 10 turnover worthy plays. So there was a time he was like maybe like the September Heisman winner. His 3 of his 5 highest rated games in PFF were in the first 5. His top 3 highest rated games were in the first 5 games of the year. So and I think he's just been leaking oil a little bit since then, as Alabama has been doing the same and playing a bunch of games that they could have lost and didn't. I think like Ryan Williams has had a goofy year for Alabama. Jeremy Bernard is still good, but I don't think like Alabama has the dominating skill guys that maybe they've had at times. And I just think there's been a lot on him. And sometimes I think you watch them and you can feel the burden he carries at times, like, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but yeah, I like the trust level. I would put him, I would have gone Stockton next 5th also, right? So I would say I would trust Mendoza, Sayin, and Moore. If they were my quarterback going into the playoff, I'd be, let's go. We can win the national championship. I don't want to trade my guy. I don't have it. I don't have doubts about my guy. Let's go. Chambliss and Stockton, I would think they give me a chance. And like there's a ceiling there. And I don't think they're gonna knock us out of the game in the first half with 3 picks, right?
Yeah.
My trust line is after 5. I would not put Simpson in the I trust this guy category. Would you trust him? Like, are you a little bit higher on him that if he was your quarterback, you'd be like, no, we're good. We can do this thing.
No, I don't think I'd be. I wouldn't be that strong with it. No.
Okay. So then I think like he's okay, but against Georgia in the SEC championship game, he completed less than half his passes, right? Like that's just kind of where we are. So I'm not going to pretend that I am a Ty Simpson expert, but he just has not been as good in the second half of the season as he was in the first. And watching him makes me nervous. Even just the way he plays, like sometimes in the midst of a play, it's like, oh my God, what's going to happen here? What are you doing? And then sometimes it's like, and then he throws the ball at somebody's ankle. And it's like, okay, at least it wasn't a pick. But like, is he not a knot in your stomach kind of experience sometimes watching him play QB?
The spectrum of possible outcomes every time he drops back to throw the ball is probably about as wide as it can be with the quarterback.
That's fair.
Because, like I said, there's some really, really good stuff, but then there's there's the ball that hits the guy in the ankle. It's like, where was that going?
Yeah.
He didn't play. He played okay. I thought that the first time they played Georgia and won on the road at Georgia, it's not like he's struggled against every good defense that Alabama has played. But yeah, his season is just kind of like going in the wrong direction, and he got outplayed by Mateer against Oklahoma. There was just like mistakes that cost Oklahoma that game, and like kind of weird bounces that went Oklahoma's way the first time they played, and then like went Alabama's way the second time they played. But I don't Alabama did not have the best quarterback on the field when they played Oklahoma the other day.
Okay. 2 left. Who you picking 7?
The Meteor. No, I'll pick I don't know. I'm not. Baron Morton is the guy like who I've by far seen the least of all these players. So I guess I'll pick Carson Beck because I don't want to pretend like I know a bunch about Baron Morton. I don't love Carson Beck at all. And he's gotten kind of like worse every year throughout his career, which is not where you want to be. But I don't know. I guess he's got some talent, so I'll roll with Carson.
If Cam Ward was Miami's quarterback, how would we be thinking about this playoff, this matchup with Ohio State compared to where we are with Carson Beck?
I think if Cam Ward was Miami's quarterback, you would have seen a lot of people picking Miami to win the national title as like the team that's going to get it together and roll through the playoff.
Yeah. And I think, again, like for Miami's sake, like they won 10 games in the regular season last year and this year, and they sort of like their defense let them down at the end of last year and didn't give them the shot to get into the ACC championship game or the playoff. And so you sort of wasted Cam Ward. Not wasted, like he helped elevate Miami to this new level, which is a playoff contender level, which is not where they had been for basically 2 decades. So Cam Ward certainly made an impact. But I've said it 1,000 times on our Ohio State shows. I like almost everything about Miami except their coach and their quarterback. And so that's where we are with Carson Beck, which is a tough place to be. Big time throws among starting quarterbacks. He has 14. That's tied with Gunnar Stockton for the fewest in the playoff. He has 10 turnover worthy plays. He doesn't push the ball down the field quite as much as some of the other guys. You know, he certainly has one great weapon in Malachi Toney, but he makes me, you know, he's not a run threat at all, right? Like this is, I guess he doesn't take a ton of sacks, maybe because he gets rid of the ball, but he's not going to scramble. Like maybe the 2 guys who maybe are the least dangerous with their legs are Sayin and Beck, right?
Yeah, I think so. Stockton, or excuse me, not Stockton. Oh, I was looking at the wrong guy. Beck's adjusted completion percentage is above 80%. So like it accounts for drops. It looks like his receivers have had 15 drops. You know what's crazy is that Ty Simpson, it says here, his 30 of his throws have been dropped. 30.
Yeah.
And his adjusted completion percentage is still only 75%.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, his completion percentage is like 48. So then Baron Morton is last for Texas Tech. And again, he missed a couple games and Will Hammond had to start. This is not the place to come for your Baron Morton breakdown of the week. We're not even going to apologize. It just is what it is. If and when we'll get more eyeballs on Baron Morton because I'm certainly excited for Texas Tech and Oregon in a huge way. But again, as we said, weakest units in the playoff, Ole Miss defense, Texas Tech offense, and he's the quarterback of the Texas Tech offense. And so this is not why they are here. You know, he has 13 turnover-worthy plays, but yet he's only thrown 4 picks. So that's nice. I don't know. I honestly have, if Baron Morton walked into me on the street, I'm not sure I would know who he is.
No, I don't think so either. And like also it's just like congratulations for having a low number of interceptions. The nature of that offense is you're not going to be in a position to throw very many. It's like pure air raid kind of stuff. Yeah.
So if there's 3 tiers, do you generally agree with Mendoza, Sayin, Moore? There are guys. Let's go. We can win a natty with them. Yes. Second tier, Chambliss and Stockton, pretty good. Maybe more of a wild ride, but let's take our shot. And then Simpson, Beck, Morton, you're a little more like, I don't know, man.
I think maybe you could have Simpson by himself,
Okay.
and then maybe Morton and Beck together in the bottom tier.
It's hard because like probably first half of the season, Simpson is in one of the top 2 tiers, and then second half of the season, Simpson's at the bottom. But also, like, which one are you going to get? And maybe he rises up. Are we Northern? I don't know if I can reach a sword. We think the 3 best quarterbacks are the quarterbacks for the Northern teams. Are we Northern honks?
No, I mean, like, yes, but like that, I don't know that I'd use this as the example for like, what's your argument? If you want to tell me that you think Ty Simpson is better than Julian Sayin, Dante Moore, or Fernando Mendoza, I'll hear you out, but you're not going to convince me that you're right. It's just facts are facts, and those are definitely the 3 best quarterbacks.
I just think they get a little loose down south, man. There's a little more looseness, and there's still playmaking with the Northern guys, but there's a little bit more sort of structure, and we know what's up. And that's the thing about this is we're at the point, so you got to win 3. So, I think Trinidad Chambliss and Gunnar Stockton and Ty Simpson they could get you 1. Mm-hmm. They could let 1 rip and be like, holy moly, that guy kind of won that game by himself. But can they win 3 that way? I would not bet on that. Where I think like Mendoza, Sayin, and Moore are like, let's go. You drive the train. Obviously, there's a ton of talent on all those 3 teams, but they are natty. They are natty type quarterbacks. So, okay.
I think so.
Just a little guide. We appreciate you guys being here. If you want to go check out our Substack, we're writing over there. Big Wednesday show that dropped over there, just talking about your favorite Christmas present as college football fans and taking questions from our Substack audience. If you want to come join us for the holidays, maybe just for a month to try it out, maybe you want to ask for a Bill and Doug Substack as part of a late Christmas present or something, billanddougosu.substack.com. Go over there and sign up, see what you think. Like, subscribe, tell a friend about the Bill and Doug Show. Thank you so much for being here. Have the happiest of holidays and the merriest of Christmases. And then we'll probably do a few more things like this, Bill, right?
Yeah, at least we're going to talk defenses. I know that.
We are. Yeah, we're going to do a defense draft too. So, all right. For now, he's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises. And that was the Bill and Doug Show.